a Lake Amphibian LA-200. Let's have a look at it. So here we are with, this is Mark at Skywagon University, and we've got a 1977 Lake Buccaneer, which is an L-4 200 amphibian. Now I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I've never flown one, I've never owned one, and all I'm going to be telling you about today is like a sort of hangar show and tell, like an overview. So if you want to see more about them in action, just go to other YouTube channels and see them flying. But let's just look around this plane's, you know, what it is to make a Lake Buccaneer, and we'll have a little close look at some of the more detailed parts of it that aren't on the everyday videos of them flying on water. So getting in and out, the windshield is the door. They open to there and just sit on this spring, but then climbing in you bang your head. So you just let the spring go even longer and flop it right over, and it can lie there, but obviously only one can be open. And then this is the bottom of the door, because if it was any lower it'd sink. So when they're floating in the water's about here. And obviously when it's hydroplaning it's just under there on the hull. But it's very much a boat. Down to cleats for tying her up, a rubber bump stop on the nose for banging into other lakes or docks and things. It's like the single hull of a 185 float plane. So when it's floating deep in the water off the step, it's very much in the water deep. But when it's hydroplaning, when it's up on the step, it's on the bottom main hull down there. And the ferry pilot that brought it to me told me there's a nice little safety thing that's kind of almost accidentally built into them. If it won't get on plane because of density, altitude or temperature, it won't fly. So if it'll get on plane and you've got enough room, it'll fly. So the overview of it is 24 feet long, 38 feet wide, which is 2 feet longer wings than a 182 or a 206. So if you've got a 40-foot hangar, you're going to have problems there anyway. But if you've got a 40-foot hangar, it might not fit in it unless it's a big box hangar. The engine is a 200 horsepower IO 360 Lycoming 4-cylinder. And remember, IO injected opposed, 360 cubic inches, and 4-cylinder flat air cooled, and it's mounted backwards. It's a pusher, so the propeller is reverse, the blades are like mirror images of themselves, so the front is the back. But we'll look up the engine in there and we'll work our way around it and see what it's got. So wings, the wings are literally just wings. There's no fuel in the wings. The fuel is here. You open that, there's a cap, it holds 40 gallons. It's right underneath the engine in the center of gravity. So refuelers at airports will look on the wing, and there's no gas cap. It's got vortex generators on the front of the wing. And in fact, interestingly, the first few years of these, there was an option to buy a non-amphib version of it. It was literally a flying boat. It was this plane with gear you could put under it to get it out of the lake, but it didn't have it as part of it. And when the Buccaneer came out, it had like the full-on three-wheel retractable amphib. I mean, you could fly this land to land to land all the time, but the fun of it is going in the water, which unfortunately we're not going to be able to do on this video. So let's walk around and have a look at the tail. So a lot of the information I've got about this plane is from the ferry pilot that just flew it from Alaska down to here, and he's got 22,000 hours and he's owned 7 lakes. But he said that you just leave the flaps down all the time on the ground, because you always take off with flaps and you always land with flaps, and there's one setting. So if you leave them down, you're always going to be ready for takeoff, and the only time they're up is when it's flying. So they just are down. So tail, obviously with the engine being up there, when you give it power, it's going to shove the nose forward because the line of thrust is above it. So they have massive trim tabs back here, and these are neutral at the moment, and they'll fly like this. But when you're taking off, the takeoff position is here. Massive amount of up to fight the down. And the other thing is, when you go around, say you bounce a landing on the water, the instinct is to jam the throttle full power and save it. Well, if you do that, it burrows the nose. So you get it in the air, hold it there with a bit of power, make your decision to say whether or not you're going to land it or you're going to go around, depending on the circumstances. But never just gun it, because it'll try and push the nose down. A massive rudder, which it's got a water rudder. In fact, I'll do that now. I'll show you the water rudder. When you land on the water, you've got a huge amount of air blast of the prop wash over the rudder, so you can steer it very easily on the water with prop blast. But when you're very slow and you want accurate, then you put the water rudder down, and it lives inside the rudder here. So I'll quickly put that down. The water rudder. So for stability when it's sitting on the water, these little wing floats will just stay on the surface to keep it level. And you can have actually, there's a mod to change these into auxiliary fuel tanks. They'll hold 7 gallons each, so 7, 14, it burns 10 an hour. There's an hour and a quarter's worth of fuel that you can have in these. And some of them came with it, and some of them you can add it afterwards. This one doesn't have it, it's just got 40 main gallons, and it burns 10 an hour, so that's 4 hours. And then working inward, you can see the VGs on the wing here too. The gear obviously just retracts straight up into the bottom of the wing, out of the way of everything. It's got a lock here, micro switch here, micro switch here. There's one green light to say up and down inside, but all 3 micro switches must agree with each other for it to be up. Plus, you can just look out the window and see the wheel, whether it's there or not. And there's a mirror on that float to see the nose wheel. So it's very easy to inspect its gear. This little square keyhole here, you open that, it's a hydraulic reservoir. And the hydraulics are very important because the flaps are hydraulic, you need them for takeoff and landing. The gear is hydraulic, and the trim is hydraulic. So it's got a hydraulic reservoir with a bottle with a level you got to keep an eye on, and it's also got a hydraulic pressure gauge in it, which you got to keep in the green. It's just one more thing about lakes, you got to keep an eye on your hydraulics. This little locker here serves 2 purposes. One, it's access to the nose wheel from above. I can see, if it was in the lake, I could see water in there, I can see the ground. But the back half of it is a little locker, and it can hold up to 70 pounds of ballast. So if you've calculated your center of gravity and it's off for the load you've got with people, luggage or whatever, you can add weight here to make it go back into the envelope. And this isn't like a 182 where you just load her up and hope. You've got to be in the envelope to fly one of these well. There's a lot of planes that are very similar to each other. I just get in and fly them, and it's the same. This is one that I'm going to get checked out in, so I know how to fly it. I mean, land to land would probably be okay, but you've got to know how to fly it. But water is not something to experiment with. So let's go up and have a look at the engine. And I'm going to nimbly jump up there like I've been around these things all my life, so excuse me if I fall. Not bad for a rookie. So, we'll show you how this opens and then come up and have a closer look at it. You release a catch here, and you release a catch here, and then you open it a little bit, and there's a little thing like a hood latch on a truck or car that you release. Then you open the whole front of it, lie it back carefully on there, and now you have the best access to an engine accessory area that I've ever seen. And all the things that are back here, the normal things that are on an IO360, like this is the same engine as in my Mooney M20E, so this would be in Cardinal RGs, Piper Arrows 70 and newer, Mooney M20Es, Fs and Js, Lake Buccaneers. Very reliable, long-lived engine. And this plane has 818 hours on it, total time on its airframe, and 818 hours total time on its engine and prop, but it's had a bottom end done and a top end done and the prop reseal, so it's just done 30 hours flying from Alaska and used 2 quarts of oil doing 100 knots. So it's very fresh under here. So you got your normal everything. You got 2 mags, vacuum pump, oil filter, prop governor, oil cooler, hydraulic reservoir, no, engine, sorry. This is the hydraulic reservoirs down there. This is the crankcase ventilation breather, so it doesn't blow oil all out over the side of your plane. Totally accessible, and all the cylinders are in there, of course. And then the air is ducted over the top of this baffle, so it goes in there on top of the cylinders and then forced down through them just like anything else, but the other way around. Oil is here. So imagine you're on a lake, you're up here, oh yeah, there's my oil. Keep her at about 6. fuel drain. Really, I mean, it's not easy to work on it up here because you're up in the air, but it's very easy to maintain and look at it and check everything. And then to close it, the reverse, you just bring that down. It'll catch momentarily on the rubber baffling of the oil cooler, so you push through that and shut it down to this little retainer here again, past that, latch, and latch. Ready to go. Well, the camera angle's not good for this interior shot, so we're just going to move the plane. I thought it'd be a good opportunity to show you. You grab hold of the wheel well, the front of the wheel well under the nose, lift it, and then just walk it around so you can position it onto a tie down. And it isn't that heavy, so maybe that's a better angle. And then just nice landing. Yeah. Cool. So in the cockpit, the usual suspects. You know, all the instrumentation is normal airplane stuff, keying, a little bit of keying and some glide slopes, airspeed, things like that. But what's interesting and different, this is the flaps, hydraulic. This is the gear, hydraulic. Here's your hydraulic pressure gauge. Obviously yokes, normal. And then this is a handle for getting in and out. You don't hang on here, you don't knock. Oh, and a tip would be this throttle control here. Even when it's parked, you're not using it, leave it at full throttle. Because if it's like that, people break them and they bend them and they hold on to them. So you just leave it at full throttle and it's out of the way. But that is the throttle. And since we're on the ceiling, planes with controls on their ceilings are always cool. Here's the prop control. So that's coarsening up the pitch. He's pulling a cable to the governor, so you'd probably be in cruise about there. And the mixture is this little red knob, so it's fully lean, and you go full rich, start it, and then lean it just like this, and you can lock it in place with a thread. So there's your mixture, there's your prop, there's your throttle. It's all up and up on top. And back there is the fuel selector, and it's on. There is no left, right, both, because there's one tank, one position, on and off, and it's actually wired on. And as you can see, it's a 4-seater. So there's back seats. You have to be careful with loading, but it's a 4-seater. And then down here, be tricky to see it, is the hydraulic trim, and it's got an accumulator so you can hear it. That's moving the trim. And what I did earlier with the water rudders is this lever here, this lever, no lever, it's a lever. So water rudders are up, water rudder is down, there's one, up again. ELT, under there. Everything handily in the cockpit. Emergency gear extension pump, you pull it out, and pump it until you see all the wheels in the mirror. And you can see, yeah, it's just manual. I'm not going to dick with it on the ground. Never mess around with gear when a plane's on the ground unless you know what you're up to. Normal rudder pedals. Right side does not have brakes, and they stow, so you can put them down out of the way so nobody's pedaling it from this side. Brakes on the left. Otherwise, very conventional. Yoke. Weird there's no throttle proper mixture, but you probably get used to that. And it's 4-seat, and it's pretty wide. It seems to be, it's probably as wide as a 182, wider than a 172. Yeah, interesting plane. I want to put it on the water, and if we do, we'll video it. So let's try a hot start on it. It's the same as my Mooney, except it's up there, not over there. So mags on, battery and alternator on, mixture full lean, full throttle, so that's full power, full lean. And then just say to yourself, when it starts, reverse them. So it starts, you go rich and idle. So let's see if that works. Clear. How was that? So a couple more statistics, because I'm kind of jumping around. Is the useful load's about 930 pounds on this plane, and 40 gallons is like 200 and something pounds. So you could, if you were careful, you could do 4 people in it. You wouldn't want to go up to a high altitude mountain lake on a hot day though, but you have to be in it as careful as you'd be in, say, Maimuni with weight. Production numbers from 70 till about 84, they made about 1,000 of them. And then there is a big brother to this. So if it's lacking but you need more, you get this exact plane with, instead of an IO 360 up there, you get an IO 540, which is 2 more cylinders, which is 250 horsepower, like a Comanche 250 would be, or a turbo, which is 270 horsepower. That would get you off the high altitude mountain lakes, because you'd have full manifold pressure up at the high altitudes, high temperatures. So there's a few options on them, but it's different. It's not the kind of plane I normally have. I just couldn't resist it, and since it was here, we made this video about it. So hopefully, I have ferry insurance that lasts 30 days, and there's still some time left. So if I can get an instructor to come and check me out in it, we'll do a little bit of flying in it. But other than that, this was just a quick hangar, walk around, chat, look at, sort of an overview of a 1977 Lake Amphibian. And we do other videos like this, but much more detail. We get into more high-tech spec on them, and we fly a lot of the planes too. So if you like this, we've got a subscribe button here and a little bell for notifications. And we'll be doing a lot more of them in the future. Thanks for watching.